The first raid on Aegates was a major success. Most buildings were set ablaze, leaving nothing but dust and bones. Unrest seemed to grow massively due to this. Perhaps this is a potential weakness for us to exploit. This is probably a great opportunity to give a quick recap on our situation. Apart from our Achilles fleet in the Aegates moving towards Corsica, another one named Odysseus will take up the mantle of patrolling our coastlines from a potential pirate threat. Jason and Lysimachus were both on high alert ever since the Seleucids launched another offensive from their hiding place amongst the mountains. We've already lost one subject in Mesopotamia. We can only expect the same will happen to the other one. As retaliation from this, Aristophanes had taken his own army into Anatolia, where he is hoping to serve swift vengeance on the Seleucid puppet of Massacre. All the way back south, Junior was on a diplomatic mission into Arabia. He will stay near the borders of Petra, where he will assess the situation and act accordingly. There's also this confusing development at the borders of Libya with the Numidian vassals of Carthage. However, it was all resolved in an anticlimactic way. This is just to show our superiority in mind compared to these dim-witted barbarians. At least they found reason in these thoughts of theirs. The iron mines of Massacre, which didn't really stand a chance against our power, has the potential of becoming crucial for our future army development plans. So they will just be exempted from taxes and militarized heavily to secure our production from enemies outside and within. With our second ally in Mesopotamia gone, we all knew open conflict with the Seleucids was a matter of time. The good thing is Lysimachus and his army was pretty much ready to hold the line. And with Aristophanes returning from the north, the numbers advantage surely is in our favor. All these conflicts throughout our kingdom forced us into reforming our grain warehouses, mostly due to hunger weakening all loyalties. And we can't have that. After having sacked yet another port in Sicily, it was time for our fleet to find a proper home for itself. Somewhere to restock its rations. This old port settlement in Alalia will make do. But first we need to take it from Rome. Due to our elite marines, these kinds of battles are rather simplistic. Before the assault would split up our navy into two groups. One with all our major ships and crew to land on the outskirts, and the others, mainly Scorpion ships, rushed into their port from where they would be able to give support during the actual attack. Once our marines made landfall, some of them would strike through the port side. However, the majority still took the longer way around through the edges of the town. Once we had drawn enough forces out into the open, our remaining assault ships will land from within, effectively outflanking the enemy. After having defeated the Romans, we looted the supplies from the area. It gave us a ton of resources, of which we will use to make this our first official colony with Egyptian influence. This was a massive boost to our naval range in the Aegates, giving us visibility over every coastline bordering it. We could even see how heavily fortified Cavalis was, with even the Iberian satrap of Carthage, the Edetani, keeping an army on the island. Furthermore, Damianus had made landfall too. Here on Sicily, he immediately spotted a Roman legion at Panormus, the last sacked port by us apart from Alalia. Most likely this was their way to discourage any future raids, but this single legion can't be everywhere at once. Our small raids have already increased our naval skill level, and this is just the beginning. Back home in Libya, the chaotic conflict had finally come to an end. This gave us time and the will to develop the entire province. They are already producing a substantial amount of food for our empire. It is only fitting we supply them with water tanks to make the city cleaner, and that we establish a grain market to encourage trade and a bit of commerce. We did debate to upgrade their housing facilities too, but decided against it to continue our expansion of our core province of Egypt proper instead. As one of our spies scouted the Arabian desert, he found a group of desert nomads marching on one of the Nabatean trade outposts. It seems like their weakness will be our fortune. We broke our trade agreement with them and prepared for a siege of Petra. We will have to wait though, so the rest of the world doesn't strike out against us. In the meantime, one of the Seleucid armies made the daring move of crossing the Tigris, attacking Europos of all places. Surely this was Antiochus' doing, probably still burning with hatred for us ever since we killed his son. He's now trying to do the same. Lysimachus was a young, inexperienced commander. However, as a child of the Ptolemaic dynasty, he had the blessing of both Greek and Egyptian gods by his side. We decided to meet them on the outskirts of the town. Here our garrison force did an excellent job at pinning down the enemy, while our archers sniped unaware units. In the meantime, Lysimachus himself followed his cavalry around the engagement to appear behind the enemy lines, accompanied by his Syrian elephants too. The Seleucids made a move to slow us down. After several rear charges and having hunted down most of the fleeing units, Egypt had finally defended their borders from the first Seleucid attack. After the battle, the enemy commander was somehow part of the surviving forces escaping the humiliating encounter. For this to happen, he had to abandon his scorpions on the field, giving these powerful weapons over to the Prince of Egypt. A fleet of Carthaginian slave ships arrived at one of our ports. He humbly requested to sell his slaves in our cities. At first we intended to confiscate these slaves for our own private use. However, after anticipating this only would lead to further distrust between our two nations, we allowed him to perform his trade here. At Alalia we used our surplus of wealth from our raid to fund the construction of a new temple, while setting up a Sicilian immigration embassy for the ones seeking refuge from the terrible Roman occupation. The locals did have some minor complaints about our presence, yet every obstacle can be overcome by a little intrigue and exemption from taxes. Which is fine, by the way. Like, how are we supposed to transport these taxes back to Egypt anyway? These are hostile waters, not fit for monetary transportation. At Corsica, our intel revealed the largest host of forces I've ever seen combined into one area. One of the commanders was some Cornelius Scipio. He was the one ordering the other known army out at sea towards Carthage itself. Our Achilles fleet tried to intercept them, but was too far away. However, after Damianus revealed Sicily was completely unguarded at the moment, it was once again a lucrative target for another raid. Surely we've gained their attention by now. Our schemes to claim revenge on the Nabateans had seemingly reached the ears of the Sabaean nobles. wishing to trade with us. However, with the memory of our former ally in mind, the only way we would accept such a deal was through submission. A group of Carthaginian priests requested our assistance to build a temple of Baal Hamun in our lands. Despite us wanting to secure a friendship with this trade behemoth, this was a step too far. Our internal struggles between Hellenism and the Egyptian deities were more than enough. We don't need a third, so we refused. The Roman army trying to reach Carthage had seemingly changed its mind, most likely fearing us crushing them during their travels, and had thus returned back to Panormus. This complicated our raids a bit, yet it didn't stop us from assaulting Aegates. From this we even learned about more Roman ports along the eastern coast of their little peninsula. We will require an entire newly supplied fleet to perform any form of raids over there. We aren't currently in a position to reach them just yet, although it could be wise to spread out our attacks a bit to split up this monumental legion of elite warriors. Damianus did his part too, assassinating the legatus of the legion currently stationed alone in Sicily, just to piss them off. In Anatolia, the Galatians and Pergamonians continued to fight each other. As we were trading with both and this conflict only caused less income for us, we sought to wedge ourselves in between the two of them. To halt their hostilities, we client-stated Iconium, the main settlement from where the conflict was taking place. Not sure if it will work, but it sure gained the attention of Parsa, one of the many former vassals of the Seleucids who didn't wish to sign a peace treaty with us at the time. Until now, which we gladly accepted. A man accused of killing a Carthaginian official was brought before me. However, as he offered a sizable monetary contribution in return for assurance of his safety, we instantly agreed to his proposal. This might turn out to bite us in our heels in the future, but so be it. Aegates, our senior governor of Memphis, had sadly passed away. It caused a slight dip in our revenue, yet I am confident his replacement will do just fine too. It appears our departure from Sicily happened at the perfect time. After a failed Carthaginian assault on Panormus, most of the legions stationed at Corsica crossed over to the island. With them clumped together in the south, the port of Genoa seemed like a way better target. However, this climate was highly unpleasant and cold, making us only raid this area once just to return back to Corsica. We did, however, gain some interesting intel. A man from Genoa told us of a world nearby known as Gaul. A vast and untamed land fit for our overflowing treasury to be invested in. It was an idea Ptolemy himself was very intrigued by, so he formed a military access pact with Carthage, allowing our armies to mostly travel by land instead of the dangerous sea. Our Odysseus fleet was thus deployed in the Aegates to ease this transportation of our armies. The plans of a new colony in Gaul has been initiated. Speaking of Carthage, after a few weeks the slave master returned to finish his business. Overall, it increased our slave trade for several years and made 2,000 gold in earnings. However, as they heard of us denying their gods, their priest threatened us with the divine wrath of their deities. We tried to make it up to them by engaging a Roman transport, but as they fled, we now had an angry ally. Lysimachus, who have had enough of only protecting the Tigris, took his royal privileges into use and went on the offensive. He attacked Mygdonia,